The lack of outfield production has been an issue that has plagued this Philadelphia Phillies team for several postseason runs. But are they prepared to just run it back with Johan Rojas and Brandon Marsh as the only center field options? Potentially not, as reports are heating up that the Phillies are in the mix and interested for Cedric Mullins of the Baltimore Orioles. I want to break down the new reports that we do have surfacing, a little bit of my rethought, outlook on things, and Matt, why it might have been a bit too low on Mullins before, and what could ultimately sweeten this deal to make it work for this Phillies team. Do want to dive right into things right here on Phillies Digest, but as always, want to remind you guys, make sure you are hitting that subscribe button. Just 27.6% of you guys watching these videos have subscribed to us here on the channel just yet. We got plenty more Phillies baseball to get into and want as many of you as possible along for the ride. Now, let's get into the topic of today that, of course, I did drop my initial feelings on Cedric Mullins. This is a name that we saw popped up a couple days ago, but we got another report that I did want to acknowledge today. This coming from Philly Sports Reports here, and initially Alec Cull, who tweeted this out. A guy who, to give him his props here, he was the first guy on the Alvarado suspension that at least I saw go public with it. I did hear a little bit of scuttlebutt. Shout out to our guy Luke Arcaney, who was in the mix at Citizens Bank Park when this was kind of being announced, and he did slip me a text about it as well, not to get him in trouble either. But this was the first guy that I did see go public with it, so I will take that with a little bit before I lead into this report. Now, what he says here at the Phillies are, quote, locking in on Orioles center fielder Cedric Mullins, per Alex Scott here. And he says the Phils, quote, grew a liking to Mullins at the World Baseball Classic a few years back, Cole reporting. So interesting stuff here, as that was a detail that I was not aware of. Also, shout out to our guy Phillies Tailgate, who I do love to showcase on this channel as well, who he tweeted out that the Phillies were interested in Cedric Mullins at the trade deadline last year. He put up great numbers in April, but has struggled in May. Baltimore has held Mullins out of the lineup the past few games, and of course, in April, in 97 at-bats that he slashed 278, 412, and 515. May, not so hot. 80 at-bats, 163, 190, and 363 slashes here. Now, to talk about Mullins overall, let's first take a look at his full statistical profile at this point in the season, that he does have 10 home runs, does have 31 RBIs, a 320 on-base percentage, has walked 23 times and tallied 40 hits in his 177 at-bats there. Also stolen 7 base. The 50 strikeouts are not ideal to me. He is 30 years old. I do really wish he was a right-handed bat. That is something that would sway my opinion of him, to be honest here, that I would feel a lot better about adding a right-handed bat to this overall Phillies lineup, as I do think they are a bit heavy on the lefty side of things and makes it a little bit difficult to stagger the lineup in the way that Rob Thomson so clearly desires. But nonetheless, I don't think now is the time to be picky about that. And if Cedric Mullins is the right player for this Phillies team, and that means stacking additional left-handed bats, I certainly can overlook that. Now, a couple other details that I did want to dive into here. For starters, the full stats that we have on Mullins, this has been far from his best season in the MLB. If you want to flash back to 2021 when he was an all-star, putting up a 6.2 WAR there, slashing some pretty impressive figures. 291 batting average, 360 OBP, a 518 slugging percentage there. He tallied 59 home runs, 30 home runs, 59 RBIs there, as well as 30 stolen base. And in the field has been pretty excellent. That he is a guy who is not quite Johan Rojas from a glove perspective, but certainly holds his own and will come up with some legitimate web gems there. That he's robbing home runs, he's making diving catches, that there is some swagger to this guy's game in a way that I do like here. Now, what holds me up on all of this is I don't think Cedric Mullins is quite the needle mover that I would like him to be. And to kind of lay him out in contrast here, or to take a deeper look at his overall splits here, did want to pull up this tweet here saying, is Cedric Mullins an upgrade over the current situation in center field for the Phillies? I don't think so. And this kind of pointing out a little deeper look at the slash lines there. In March, hitting 350, 490, and 700 slash lines there, a 1.109 OPS. That is ridiculous stuff. That is a guy you can sign me up for 10 times out of 10. However, reality did strike in April and May, with April him hitting 260, 412, 468 with an 880 OPS. Those are still totally fine and honestly very good numbers there. But then May is when reality really struck here. 163, 190, and 363 slash lines there, a .553 OPS. Yeah, not great in that category here. But what really latched me in was this final tweet here saying he started off blazing hot but has slowed down mightily since then. If Felix Bautista can come in the trade, then sure, but very unlikely, I would think. And that that is another Phillies potential trade target that we have mentioned. I do think that there is this legitimate debate to have for what is the best direction of this team. Is it to beef up the bullpen? And I think that got increased in urgency following the injury, or the suspension, I mean, to Jose Alvarado. And the worst part of that being obviously him being ineligible for the postseason, that being a key left-handed arm there. But on the other side of things, when you look at what has let this team down from a postseason perspective, it has been the bats going cold at the wrong time. And I do wonder if stacking positionally, giving them a better chance to put up more runs in the postseason, could be something that does bode better for this franchise here. I think there's arguments on both sides of things here, but my opinion is, why choose one? If you can talk about bringing in Felix Bautista in the same trade package here, that makes a lot of sense to me. And to talk about Bautista overall, shout out to our guy Tim Kelly, who wrote out this article here, listed Bautista as a relief pitcher target, and he writes, Bautista didn't debut until his age 27 season, but between 2022 and 2023, he posted a 1.85 ERA across 121 appearances for the Orioles. In the latter of those seasons, he won the Mariano Rivera Award as the American League's best relief pitcher. However, Bautista missed all of 2024 recovering from Tommy John and has a 3.78 ERA in 17 games this season for the O's. So far in 2025, he's pitched on back-to-back days just once. This isn't to say that the Phillies shouldn't make a push for Bautista if the shockingly bad Orioles do sell, but Bautista has 2 remaining arbitration years after 2025 until free agency, so general manager Mike Elias will likely want a bounty for him. Right now, Bautista isn't pitching like something worthy of giving up a major package for prospects for. So why I tie this together is I do agree with that assessment, that I think Bautista does come with risk. The only point that I will add here is Dave Dombrowski has seemed to like digging through the bargain bin for this Phillies team, that he does like taking these reclamation projects or guys that he's taking a chance on. Think about Jordan Romano, who had a disastrous season last year and I guess is getting back on track. He certainly has looked improved from what he looked like last year. We're still going to have to ride that roller coaster a little bit. A better example or better success story, Jesus Luzardo, who's been unbelievable for this Phillies team. Truly one of the best pitchers in baseball thus far to start the season. The stuff is nasty. He competes. He's already pitched more innings this year than was the case last year. And by all reports, from everything that he said, is as healthy as he's ever felt. So that is an example of a guy, buying low on and seeing the results of it. That is something that Dombrowski does seem to value, and I do think Bautista fits that bill. Now, to give the proper credit for what it has looked like this season for him, it has not been the prettiest thing. He's pitched in 17 games there, just 16.2 innings pitched. Across that time, he has struck out 19, but allowed 10 hits, 2 of which were home runs. That is just 5.4 hits per 9 innings there, but a 3.78 ERA, a 1.260 whip there. A guy that there's certainly risk with. But if you can package these guys together, I do feel like the hit rate is solid for this Phillies team. And the package is obviously what will dictate things. The player that I did want to throw back in this conversation, I do really wonder what the value of Johan Rojas is on the open market or in a trade like this. I like Johan Rojas. I think he's a winning baseball player. I think he's a guy who will learn to grow through his mistakes, but I also think we can kind of accept him for who he is. I don't think there's anywhere where he develops any semblance of power. I do think he's been hitting the ball better this year and has looked more confident at the plate, but there's always going to be those moments where he's frustrating as a baseball player, and I do wonder if the best role for him, at least for now, would be in a lower pressure setting when he can kind of play through these mistakes more freely, where he is not getting benched from Rob Thomson or looking over his shoulder for when Brandon Marsh is coming into the game and situations like that. The Orioles are in a difficult spot as a franchise. They were one of the more hyped up teams coming into the season, and it has been nothing short of a disastrous start. They've already fired the manager. They have vastly underperformed, and frankly, I don't know what you do if they are them. So if they're talking about blowing things up or at least making moves to kind of shift the window and maybe give themselves a better chance of winning long term, this is the type of deal that could make some sense for me. So the fact that we continue to get these reports, this is a couple now in 2 days of the Phillies being locked in on Cedric Mullins here, I do think is a bit telling here. So I'm feeling a little bit more positive about this potential deal coming together than I did a couple days ago. We will ultimately see whether or not if that is the case, but Cedric Mullins certainly a name to have our eyes out on moving forward. So let me know what you guys think of this overall. Your thoughts on Mullins, have they changed? I do think I undersold him a little bit in the opening video, so did want to come back on, give my upgraded thoughts, and of course Bautista would be a very nice sweetener, I think, on that type of deal. So we'll see what ultimately comes together to this point, but do want to hear from you guys in the comments, and as always, do want to remind you guys to make sure you are smashing that subscribe button. At this point in time, 72.4% of you guys watching these videos have not subscribed to us here at Phillies Digest just yet. So let's keep this Phillies Digest family growing. Appreciate each and every one of you guys tuning in as always. I'll be back talking to you next time. Peace.